Building software isn't really just about writing lines of code. It's this huge, complicated adventure. It's a never-ending search for the perfect process, this quest to bring some kind of order to the chaos of turning a simple idea into something real and powerful. Today, we're going to dig into that quest.
All right, let's just start with a cold, hard dose of reality. According to a 2009 Standish report, this number, 24%, is the percentage of software projects that just plain failed, canceled before they ever saw the light of day. Think about that. Almost a quarter of all projects.
And believe it or not, it gets even more interesting. For the projects that actually did make it to the finish line, a massive 44% of them were challenged. Now, that's just a polite way of saying they were way over budget, way behind schedule, or they didn't even have the features they were supposed to have in the first place.
So you have to ask, right? Why is this so hard? I mean, with all the incredible technology we have, why does so many big, ambitious projects just completely fall apart? Well, that's the big question we are going to unpack right now.
To get to the answer, we've got to rewind the clock. Go back to the very first major attempt to put some rules and discipline on the creative and, let's be honest, often messy process of building software. So let's talk about the model that tried to create order from chaos, the waterfall.
In the very beginning, the process was pretty much what we'd call code and fix. It was the Wild West, seriously. You'd write some code, and then you'd fix the problems. And as research from pioneers like Barry Boehm showed, this usually ended in disaster. After you've patched and fixed things a few times, the code just becomes this tangled, ugly mess that's incredibly expensive to change.
And this, right here, was the solution that came along, the waterfall model. And honestly, it was a revolution. A super disciplined step-by-step approach where each phase just flows right into the next. First, you get all the requirements. Then you design the whole thing. Then you build it. Then you test it. Simple. For the very first time, there was a predictable map from A to B.
It was logical. It was structured. It was a huge leap forward. But there was a catch, a really big one. The very thing that made the waterfall model so appealing, that rigid, unbending structure, turned out to be its greatest weakness.
This quote from Barry Boehm absolutely nails the problem. What he's saying is, demanding these perfect, detailed plans right at the start, it just doesn't work a lot of the time. I mean, imagine trying to describe every single feature of an app before anyone has even seen a prototype. It's impossible. Users often don't really know what they want. And with Waterfall, by the time they finally saw the finished product, it was way too late and way too expensive to make any real changes.
So naturally, the quest for a better process had to continue. The whole industry needed models that could handle the one thing Waterfall was terrible at, risk. And this kicked off a whole new generation of thinking, all designed to try and tame that uncertainty you get with any big, complex project. And you can literally see the difference in philosophy right here. I mean, it's night and day. Over on the left, you've got that straight, one-way street of the waterfall model. Then on the right, you've got these repeating loops of the spiral model. It's a completely different way of looking at the problem. The spiral model is all about one thing, managing risk. So instead of one long process, you build things in a series of cycles, or spirals. In each little loop, you plan, you figure out the biggest risks, you build a piece of the solution, maybe a prototype, and then you stop and evaluate what you've learned before you start the next loop. The whole point is to tackle the scariest, most unknown parts of the project first.
So when do you actually use this thing? Well, you pull it out for the big, complicated stuff. We're talking large projects where the requirements are kind of fuzzy at the beginning, or any project with medium to high risk, where you absolutely have to check your progress and solve those big unknowns before you commit a ton of time and money.
Around the same time, another idea was taking shape, the V model. You can kind of think of it as Waterfall's super disciplined cousin, the one who's obsessed with testing. The V-shape itself is the whole point. For every single development phase you have on the left side, you plan a matching testing phase on the right. Testing isn't an afterthought, it's baked in from day one.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. All of these models we've talked about, waterfall, spiral, V-model, they're all generally considered heavyweight. They love detailed plans, they love documentation, but they only represent one side of this huge philosophical debate that was starting to brew in the software world.
And this table really lays out the two opposing teams. On one side, you have the heavyweight approaches, which are all about getting predictability by planning every little detail in advance. But on the other side, you've got the lightweight or agile approaches.
They're all about being adaptable. They prefer short, quick cycles and rely on the team's shared knowledge and constant feedback instead of some giant, rigid plan. This was a whole new philosophy.
So after this whole journey through decades of software history, what's the answer? Which model is the best? How do we actually pick the right path for the projects we're working on? And this is it. This is the big secret. It turns out there is no magical one-size-fits-all perfect process. The real wisdom, the real skill is in the matching. It's about understanding what kind of project you have and then picking the right tool for that specific job.
So let's make this super practical. If your requirements are totally locked down and you know they're not going to change, something disciplined like Waterfall or the V-model is a great choice. If you're tackling a massive, risky project full of unknowns, the Spiral model is your best friend. And for that classic situation where the user says, I can't tell you what I want, but I'll know it when I see it, well, an iterative, evolutionary approach, which is the heart of Agile, is really the only way to fly.
This whole quest for order has taken us from simple code and fix all the way to complex spirals and nimble, agile teams. But the story of software development, well, it's still being written. And that leaves us with one last, really fascinating question to think about. Now that artificial intelligence is starting to write and debug its own code, what on earth is the next chapter in this quest for order going to look like?